Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all having a fantastic whatever time it is in your part of the world. Here in Australia it's evening. I'm not really that sleepy. I haven't been in a great mood lately, so I'm hoping that after this review I'll be able to fall asleep. So the film I'm going to be reviewing for you all tonight is an Australian movie. It's based on a true story for all you guys who like your true crime movies. This one's for you. It was released in 2011. It's only just come out on DVD. I believe that in the UK it's coming out next year in March, so it's quite some time to go. So the Australian release is the way to go for the time being. I know it's going to be released in the US soon, but yeah, so this is the Australian release. It was released in 2011, directed by Justin Kurzel, and this film is called Snowtown. Now, Snowtown is about the Snowtown murders. Now, Snowtown is a small community in South Australia, and it's set in the 90s. So 1992 to 98, I believe. So for those of you who know about the Snowtown murders, John Bunting, who was Australia's worst serial killer, he ended up killing 11 people. And this is really the story outlining the life and how it was during this period of his killings. So, yeah, John Bunting, if you've read up on him, he was the guy responsible for the bodies in the barrel. He basically put these bodies in the barrel to dispose of them, barrels full of acid. So it was very horrific, and it really did gain a lot of attention for Snowtown for the wrong reasons. So, yeah, this is basically a rundown of that story. I've read up on the story since watching this film, and the actual facts are very true to the film. So the film is very true to the actual facts, I should say. So yeah, it is a real life, based on a real event. So if these kind of things interest you, then hopefully this film will do that. So as I said, all the names in the film are based on real people. It's basically about this small community and this kid named Jamie Vlasakis. And he is an abused kid. He really has been raised in a very rough environment, and he doesn't have a father figure. His father has since left his mother, so the mother has been responsible for raising the children. So his father, he doesn't have a male dominating sort of figure in his life. And then his mother has a new boyfriend, and this new boyfriend is John Bunting, the killer. And he's a psychopath, and he ends up manipulating Jamie to doing things that he doesn't want to do. And at first, John Bunting comes across as a very good father figure, and Jamie's starting to get a lot of confidence. But as time goes by, um, Jamie is starting to realise just who this guy is, and he's starting to get very scared. So he's fearing him, but he's very loyal to him, so he doesn't want to disappoint him. And so, if you've read up on the story, Jamie Vlasakis ended up going to jail for a very long time because he was involved in these murders, and he just went along because of the manipulation that John Bunting and the power that he had on him. So it's just a tale about life in a very sort of poor neighbourhood, and how things can be very tough, and the power that some charismatic people can have on weaker individuals. So yeah, as I said, if you've read up on the story, you don't need me to go through a synopsis. It's basically just about how a father figure can have the influence over someone who's much younger and doesn't know the world as much. So yeah, that's as far as I'm going to go with synopsis. If you want to track the film down and see it for yourself, then I would recommend it. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go through the details about what happens, because then there's no reason to see the film. So yeah, now my thoughts on this movie. I really didn't know too much about the Snowtown murders. Now, it took the country by surprise. It shocked the country because of the barbaric sort of nature of these killings. But I only really knew about, when it comes to Snowtown, I only really knew about the bodies in the barrels. And I didn't really know too much about anything else. So when I saw the film out that was being released, I thought, I'm definitely going to watch it, because although it shocked the nation, not many of us really knew exactly what it was about. So this film really does outline what happened, and as I said, it stays true to the real facts. So it really is a good way to get a better understanding of how these people operated and how they come to do what they did. The acting was absolutely unbelievable. They're all no-names. I've never heard of any of them before, but they did an outstanding job. It's just one of the most realistic films you'll ever see, and I thought, each and every character in the film was nailed to perfection. The casting was great, and they just put their heart and souls in the characters, and that's how it was portrayed as a very realistic film, and very real characters, and a lot of emotion in it. And it won't leave you feeling good. None of the characters have an easy life. It's all up in a very harsh sort of environment, so you'll go away not liking the people, but you'll start feeling sorry for them because of the circumstances. Now, the character of John Bunting, he was very manipulative, and you can kind of see why someone would follow him, because he had a kind of Charles Manson characteristic in that you could see how people would follow him, because he would brainwash them with crap, and he pretty much had everyone at his command. So he was a very, very chilling individual and a monster, and I thought the guy who played him in this film, I can't recall his name right now, but he did an absolutely outstanding job. But the person who stole the show for me was the person playing Jamie Philosakis. I thought he did an incredible job. He's only a very young actor, but he's certainly one to look forward to watching in the future, because his performance in this film was just absolutely phenomenal. So as far as Australian cinema is concerned, and as far as cinema worldwide is concerned, this is A+ acting, and it will really draw you into it. Now, the cinematography, it's set in the suburbs. Now, if you're like me, I live in the suburbs. I'm not quite as poor as the people in this film, but I can really relate to how things were. Now, you've got the local things like listening to the cricket, or listening to the horse racing, or watching fishing on the television. That's something Australians do a lot of, and more so in the suburbs. And you kind of get that feeling of isolation. It's not a busy sort of lifestyle. It can get quite boring, and it really, in this regard, it really had a hopeless sort of feeling, because it was a very poor atmosphere. Not a lot of people had high hopes or bright futures, so you kind of felt that the people here were just bored, and they were just living an aimless sort of life. And you can really understand why people would resort to crime and to make a living, because it's very harsh conditions. Not a lot of money was thrown around in these households, and people who are very corruptible were living in these areas. So a very harsh, depressing sort of atmosphere, very grainy picture, not a lot of colours, which really did suit the mood. And for a film of this topic, you really did need that kind of atmosphere, and I thought it was nailed perfectly. Now, it's one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen. I am not going to hesitate to say that. It's a lot more disturbing than Wolf Creek, in my opinion. It's not as violent. It's only 15+. I don't know how this passed for 15+. Really should have been R18, because it's a lot worse than a lot of R-rated films here in Australia. But it's what you don't see is the most disturbing part. It's not an overly graphic film, but the violence is very realistic, and it's very, very, very hard to watch. Now, John Bunting, he picked off pedophiles. He was basically, he saw himself as a saviour of the children. So the film has a lot of pedophilia themes. So that's why, it's one of the reasons why it's so hard to watch, because the pedophilia in it is quite graphic in the description. They talk about it a lot, and it will distress a lot of people. It really did start rattling me. Just what happens and what these people had to go through was just really harsh, and I felt sorry for a lot of the characters. And while it doesn't condone the violence that happened, I guess you could say that the children were better off that these pedophiles weren't around. So I'm not going to go into exactly who all of his victims were, but the majority of them were pedophiles that were feared. So a lot of people say that he did the community a service, but he also did pick off some innocent people. So, even though he did pick up pedophiles, he was a monster nonetheless. So, as I said, pedophilia themes, there's rape, there's murder, torture, and just really, really grainy, sort of dirty feeling to it, and just one of the most depressing and powerful films that I've seen in a very long time. It is a masterpiece. I absolutely loved it, but I will not be watching it anytime soon. I can compare it for the emotional impact. I can compare it to Martyrs. I don't watch Martyrs a hell of a lot, and I won't be watching this film a hell of a lot. So if you want something with tremendous power and impact, I would highly recommend you go out there and see Snowtown. It's a fantastic film. My only criticism of it is it can get a little bit confusing sometimes. It doesn't really explain itself, so you're definitely going to have to watch it a second time. It's very tough. I didn't want to watch it a second time, but I wanted to tie up some loose ends. So while I didn't want to watch it a second time, it doesn't get any easier. But upon watching it a second time, I really did, I got to tie up the loose ends. So it's definitely a film you might have to watch twice just to understand exactly what's going on, because nothing is self-explanatory. It's a pretty hard sort of plot to follow in the way it's done. So it's very different. And I know a few people have a problem with the way it was told, but as far as I'm concerned, I think this is a masterpiece. It makes me proud to say that this is an Australian film, a very, very dark film, so be very careful going into it. One of the most disturbing films I've seen. But if you can stomach the very disturbing nature, it's definitely a film to watch, because, it is very, very well made. Acting is fantastic, and it's a very, very interesting story. So yeah, that's my review of Snowtown. I'm sorry that it took a little bit long, but I thought, it's worth it. So yeah, until next time, take care of yourselves, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you later. Bye.